everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. So my guest today is a repeat guest, not only on this series of the podcast, but since 2018, I think it's 2018, I've been getting her on to talk all things health and fitness with me. In 2020, we started an online coaching business together called the EC Method, which is the best / worst name ever, in case you didn't know. EC.
God, do you remember when we started it? It was the EC Blueprint, and then we were like, that's an awful name.
Yeah, but the EC Method, actually, you know what? It works for what it is. It's still not the best though. Yeah, it stands for the Emma and Chloe Method. And now we have one of the most successful online coaching businesses in the UK. And thankfully, and more importantly, a hell of a lot of very happy clients, predominantly women, who we are extremely proud of. So, welcome back to the podcast, Emma Storey-Gordon.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. You came all the way from Scotland.
All the way!
And you're thinking of moving here.
Yeah.
I mean, the day that Emma moves to London, it's going to be so much fun for me. You'll just sit there and watch me get drunk.
Yeah.
It'll be a Friday night thing. Okay, so we thought it might be, and we've done this before, but with every year, the EC Method grows and changes into something different. And we wanted to use this podcast to talk through exactly what the EC Method is. We're not actually convinced that outside of our online health and fitness bubble, that people really have any understanding of what it is that we do and how we can actually help so many people. I think we're, somewhere in the region of 8,000 now in 3.5 years. So, okay, Emma, let me throw it to you. Why did we create the EC Method?
Very good question. And I think before we get onto that, I think online coaching in general, I think you're right that people don't fully understand what it is and why they'd get it. And there's still quite a notion of like, well, how would you coach people online? And I think lockdown kind of helped that.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the realization that when people come to us for specific goals like fat loss, body recomposition, getting off this like yo-yo dieting cycle, that's better achieved online than 1 hour session of exercise with a personal trainer, and I'm not poo-pooing that, like that's where we both started and it's amazing for what it is and getting people confident exercising, working on form. But is it the best method of changing behaviours, which is the fundamental to actually get people sustainable fat loss results? No. And it's why so many people spend a lot of money on personal trainers and don't get the results that they were looking for, they were hoping for.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why we used an online coaching platform. And then the way that we've done the EC Method means that we can work with 8,000 women. Like, I mean, both of us starting as personal trainers, there's no way I could have ever dreamed of working with that many people. No. It's completely impossible.
Yeah. It's incredible. And I think just to touch on your first point, what's interesting is, you know, both Emma and I have been face-to-face PTs, like on the ground in the trenches for years before we started any kind of online coaching businesses or anything really online at all. And what's interesting is that when you see a client once or twice a week for an hour, they come and you do like a workout with them, and there might be like various points, you know, in between sets in their rest period where they say, you know, it's something I keep going out and just kind of like fucking the diet up, or I don't know, get into a fight with my husband, and before I know it, I'm like raiding the fridge, and you have 2 minutes really to be like, oh yeah, that's really common. Have you tried that? Whereas with online coaching, your coach is available to you 24/7. And that means that when you are having consistently, you know, every other day or every day, a real struggle not to finish off all your kids' food and then blow your calories and stick to that, you consistently have someone to reach out to and say, this keeps happening, can you help me? And Emma and I, on the receiving end of your message, sit down and we've got 20 minutes to have a tete-a-tete. Your favourite. Emma loves it when I say things like that. And to have a tete-a-tete, to have a back and forth, to have a conversation, to implement a plan, a solution. Let's try it and see what happens. 2 days later, okay, it worked. Okay, it didn't work. Okay, let's go again. So it makes sense that actually, and again, I was really hesitant to do online coaching because for the exact same reason that Emma kind of touched on, didn't think it would work. I've never had such good results out of clients in my whole life because we finally are able to tackle and challenge bad food behaviors, body image hang-ups on a day-to-day personal level as opposed to in a gym setting for 2 minutes.
Yeah, it allows you to reflect and review and actually assess what's going on as opposed to, should I be having carbs like in between sets on a bench press. Like you're never going to get like really in-depth
coaching.
Good advice. Yeah, coaching essentially. Yeah.
Okay, so go on.
So the reason that we created the EC method was the first ever podcast that I came on.
Yeah.
And there was just so much interest in online coaching after that I basically tried to persuade you for probably a whole year that this was a good idea. Yeah. And then I think when you finally had time between books and all the other incredible things that you do, then you were like, yeah, all right, let's give it a go.
Yeah, I was like, Emma, I just remember sitting on the toilet sending you voice notes being like, just A, don't really have the time, B, don't really know how I feel about group coaching anyway. And then it was, and then everything quietened down. I think I just finished editing my fourth book, 2020. Yeah, my fourth book in 2020. And you were still blowing up my phone. You're like a dog with a bone. You just would not quit. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, this bitch. I was like, you know what? I really like you. I really trust you. Like, Emma's one of the only coaches in the world. I mean, I can count on one hand who I would work with. And I was like, you know what? I trust her. I like her. She makes me laugh. Fine, we'll just do it. Went for it. I have never had so much fun. The relationship that we cultivate with clients, we are like best friends. We tell each other everything. Like, oh God, I'm like absolutely terrified at the amount of people that might listen or who have access to the EC Method podcast. I'm like, I say a lot of shit on there.
I know, whenever you meet someone and they're like, oh, I listened to the podcast.
I'm like, oh crap. Especially if they're in our industry and I'm like, have we dug you out? Did you know we were talking about you? Oh my God. No, so it's incredible. Like, it's such a good vibe. And I really, I know I sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but I really think we do our clients such a good service and that's why they stay. We have like a 70% client return rate. And I just think that's the biggest compliment in the world. And of course, now we're 3.5 years in? And one of our clients asked us last week, can I just ask how long are you guys going to go for? Because it would be nice to know how long I can stay for. And we were like, indefinitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're geriatric coaches.
And I think the beauty of it is, like you said at the start, like it's changed so many times because we keep trying to improve it, but also because we keep growing as coaches as well. Like what we knew 2 years ago. Yeah. Like, I mean, we've got so much more experience now. You've had a baby, you've been qualified, like pre and postnatal. Yeah. I've done a lot of menopause work. Like, and then I guess as our clients grow and age and have different experiences, like we use that as a reason to go and find out more about that. And
yeah, I think that's true. I think with every passing year, we'll add something on, whether it's something you get when you sign up. So just so people understand, it's an 8-week online coaching platform. You get workouts on the app, which we change further around. They include home body weight, home weighted, and gym workouts. You can also do your own workouts if you have a specific performance goal in mind, or if you just really like going to your Pilates twice a week, fine. We have a foundation which applies to everybody when it comes to nutrition. So boxes you have to tick, we call them non-negotiables. Every day are protein, fruit, veg, dietary fats, ideally. Also, we do tackle food behaviors. We don't want any of our clients depriving themselves of any of their favorite things. We just want them to accept that there's an appropriate calorie range for them and to try and stay within that range. Those are our kind of nutritional non-negotiables. We have a Facebook group where a lot of people who think that they're not going to use it for this end up falling in love with it, and it actually ends up being the reason they stay. We have an incredible community of women, again, as Emma said, all going through various things, whether it's getting ready for a physique photo shoot, running their first marathon, being pregnant for the first time, going through perimenopause. They're all in it together and they support each other. And Emma and I go on there twice a week, every week, and we do hour-long Q&As with our clients, which also go out as podcasts. We call it group coaching. It is also one-to-one coaching. You get direct access to us every day. And at this point, we've got a combined 24 years now of coaching between us. There's very little that we haven't had to go away and educate ourselves on in order to coach clients through it. And there's very little that we haven't actually had personal experience with working in the body at this point, as well as professional. What are some of the things that you and I had seen constantly and consistently, especially with women, that we wanted to try and alleviate?
So I think we always have this tagline of the EC method of like, it's the last diet you'll ever need, right? Mm-hmm. Partly because it's not a diet in the sense that most people think of a diet, as in there's no fixed start point and end point, saying that it's an 8-week program. Yeah. But the whole point is like, we've had people that have been on from the start. So 2 years, right? Yeah. So you can stay as long as you are getting benefit from it. And the whole point is it isn't this usual 8-week quick fix. Yeah. And then you go off, put the weight back on and then come back. Like, we really wanted to help people lose weight and maintain weight loss And this is because we realised that most people don't have an issue losing weight.
Yeah.
They have an issue maintaining the weight that they've lost.
Yeah.
And every client that we have has dieted before, has lost weight before. In fact, most of them come to us saying, I've spent the last 30 years of my life dieting, like on a diet or off a diet, this kind of all or nothing mentality. And we really wanted to break that down so that people actually get results and actually maintain those results and don't feel this pressure to diet all the time. And our whole approach is like, it's not restrictive because you're choosing it.
Yes.
Like, no one's forcing you to do this. This is an empowered choice that you're making as opposed to enforcing these constraints on yourself. And the same action can feel completely different depending on how you're thinking about it. So this is why it often comes across quite like woo-woo, but like, you know, mindset is such an important thing.
Huge.
But if you're telling yourself you cannot have the cheesecake because you're on a diet and that's not on the diet versus actually saying no to that cheesecake is saying yes to my goals at the moment. Yeah. And that's the choice I'm making. That's an empowered choice because I've got this goal. Yeah. It feels completely different, but the action might be the same. So your mindset and intent behind these things is so important. And all this kind of nuance is what we wanted to get across in the EC method. Yeah. And it's why we spend so long on podcasts explaining it, because you can't just say that to someone once and they're like, oh, my relationship with food is fixed.
No, there's no soundbite. It's not sexy. Emma and I are evidence-based coaches, and any evidence-based coach will tell you that the only soundbite answer we can give you is it depends. We literally can't, we don't work in absolutes. We work in questions, answers, dependencies, caveats, and it's impossible to market, which is why we need long form content like podcasts in order to market it. And, you know, just on what Emma just said, it's really interesting. We were talking before we came here because we had brunch, didn't we? Casual ladies' brunch. We're talking before we came here. It's like everybody knows what to do now. You eat less, you move more, you exercise, you want to cut out carbs, fine. We won't go into why that might work for you as opposed to, you know, reducing calories. Same thing in a nutshell. There we go. Yeah. It's the same. You all know what to do. You all know what to do. You all know what to do to lose body fat. You eat less, you move more, whatever. So why isn't everybody in the physique shape that they want to be in? And it's because it's not about numbers. It's not about how many times a week you go to the gym. It's not about how many steps a day you hit. It's not about how many calories you're consuming. It's about behavior. And I'm sorry, but we have yet to meet a client who has managed to fix kind of a behavioral issue with food or a pattern that they have with food on their own. You need coaching. And the reason why you need coaching is because you need objectivity. You need somebody to be able to step back and see, what is it, like the 10,000 foot view or whatever it is, and say, okay, I can see something happening here. Why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? And you have someone to go back to consistently and say, okay, that didn't work. That did work. That didn't work. That did work. And also you need the accountability. It really helps when there's someone else other than you to be accountable to, because you can keep your own secret. But you need to make a decision when it comes to being open and honest with a professional who's helping you get somewhere.
Yeah. And I think it can be quite lonely trying to do it yourself. Or there's often like this story that especially a lot of our clients have told themselves for years of they'll never lose weight, or they always put the weight back on, or dieting doesn't work for them. And usually it's that the diet has failed them because of how, like, most diets are set up to fail, right? They've got an end point. So once you finish this, it's like, well, if you don't maintain that, you're obviously just going to revert back to the body that you had at the start if you revert back to those behaviours. And that's, again, why we focus so much on not forcing people into doing things, not having like restrictive diets, focusing on the mindset, focusing on things that they can actually maintain, and then breaking down those behaviours around food, because that's what's actually going to get you results. So many people think that it's the secret calorie number that they need. And what you were saying, like, people know what to do, but sometimes people overcomplicate things almost as a reason. Like this whole push towards like personalised nutrition based on your genetics or certain targets, and just overcomplicating the whole process, when actually most people that are attracted to that just need to start eating just like a little bit, like, you know, like smartening up their diet a little bit.
It's true. The pendulum swing is not serving you. So it's very easy. The all or nothing mindset is so easy. You're either on a diet or off a diet. And it's easy because you say yes or you say no. And there's no murky watercolor in between any of that. There's no gray area. The really hard part re the food behaviors and keeping the weight off long term is striking that balance, that middle area. And again, balance, it's different for everybody. But ultimately, it's about understanding that you don't have to never eat chocolate again, never drink half a bottle of wine with your partner again on a Saturday night. You can still have all of these things and enjoy your diet the majority of the time, lose the weight, keep the weight off, and actually you don't have to swing between on a diet, off a diet. So, for example, I said this the other day, someone was like, a girl on one of my Instagram Q&As was like, how do you still live like quite a party girl lifestyle? Because I just got back from a 4-day hen do in Ibiza, and obviously was uploading photos like I was 18 on Facebook. How do you live this party girl lifestyle and still work in health and fitness and still stay in shape? And I was like, because this whole thing that you're either on a diet or off a diet, this false dichotomy is the reason why so many people can't A, get in shape, and B, keep it off. If I look at my week, if I go out one day a week or one night a week and have a bit of fun, boozing, or have like a big kind of gastronomic dinner with my husband, that's 14% of my week overall. If I go on 2 week-long holidays in Ibiza, like party, booze, the whole thing, 2 week-long holidays in Ibiza every year, that's something like 3% of my year. It's honestly, the fact that people don't understand that you can do both, but you just have to be smart about which one exceeds the other, is the reason why so many people think they can't do it. And there's actually great joy to be found in letting your hair down and having some fun for, let's say, just arbitrary numbers here, a week, and then getting back on it for 3 weeks, like being like, no, I have my fun. There's real joy in that kind of, we call it the row sale approach. And it works in the short and medium and long term.
Yeah, I think a real eye-opening thing for a lot of our clients has been realising that your results come from averages.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes against this all or nothing mentality where you're like, oh, I've gone 2 calories over my target. Yeah. May as well start again tomorrow, even though...
May go 2002, and then you're like, no, now you did the problem. Yeah.
Exactly. And actually, most people are still in a deficit when they think that they've messed up their diet. They're just in a smaller deficit because they've gone slightly over their calories.
Yeah.
But really explaining that, and then it reduces like the anxiety and then further eating that you feel if you do go out for a meal and it was more than what you expected, or you go on holiday and you're like, hey, but I have the rest of the year to lose this weight again if I do put on a little bit.
Yeah.
But usually once you take that restriction off, you realise that you don't want to eat 5 ice creams in a day. Yeah. And actually 1 was enough. And like you're saying, there's joy in that. Like, it's not an indulgence anymore. If you're having it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you'll actually, and there's research behind this as well, really cool study on chocolate. And one group abstain from chocolate for a week, and the other group are told to eat chocolate every day for a week. Mm-hmm. And then they eat chocolate on the last day. Mm-hmm. And the groups that abstain enjoy it significantly more than the groups that always have it. And that's not being like, I'm like, actually, if you just have less of something, your enjoyment of it will increase, and then it gives you a chance to look forward to it.
Yeah.
And the research behind that is amazing, that you get 50% of the joy from your holiday from the anticipation of your holiday.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, if you are always just like willy-nilly like going for whatever the cheesecake, whatever it is, you don't actually appreciate it as much because you haven't had the anticipation of it. If you're like, I cannot wait for that one incredible cheesecake that I've been thinking about all week, you're getting some of the joy from it before you've even had it. Yeah.
It's amazing. Some of the psychological data around food behaviours and food enjoyment, we all talk about it all the time. The yogurt study, the milkshake study, now the chocolate study, new one coming in hot. You're not going to get the best results that you can get in the long term if you over-restrict. So Emma and I, we have bones of contention, plural, Chloe with everything. We have bones of contention with diet culture, and this is completely equated. We hate the fact that people, women especially, when they join the EC method for the first time, a lot of them don't even need to lose any body fat. They don't even, but they are there because they think that they have to perpetually be on a diet. They have to perpetually be watching what they eat or not. Or they're watching what they eat, or they're not. And it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. We need to give you a new view of your life, your body, your enjoyment of food, health and fitness, your enjoyment of your social life. We need an overhaul. And we do this a lot. But on equal parts, or in equal parts, I say, we also hate anti-diet messaging. This kind of really big influx of the moment of And this we love, learn to love your body, learn to accept your body. But the majority of women who have tried that and have then come to us are like, I tried it, it didn't work. I'm, significantly over a healthy BMI range. I'm significantly over what I know I would feel comfortable in my own skin. The self-love thing, it sounds great in theory. In practice, it doesn't work. Maybe for some women, and I don't want to project that onto everyone. For the majority of women, and I speak from, like we say, in the last 3.5 years, 8,000 experience, it doesn't work. So how do we teach women to take care of their bodies, love their bodies, and live their lives? And this is what we mean when we say it's not an 8-week challenge. It is not that. This is actual lifestyle coaching around food, diet, exercise, and your lifestyle. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I had a question recently that was like, should I feel bad about wanting to diet to go on holiday? And it's weird that it's got to that point of, well, I want to feel better in my own body. Yeah. I want to do it for health. I think, it comes back to intent. If you're doing it because you're like, society will only accept me if I look a certain way and I feel this huge pressure to do it and I don't really want to do it, that's very different to, I want to be a little bit leaner and I feel better when I'm that way and I'm doing it from a place of love. And then what I think is the weirdest thing, there is no higher form of self-love than diet and exercise. Yeah. Like, there's actually nothing that will make you genuinely feel better when done the right way, not when you're restricting to 1,200 calories and like avoiding social occasions, but when you're fueling yourself properly and you're eating fruit and veg and you're hitting your fat target and you're, like really taking care of your diet and you're focusing on maybe like minimizing the processed foods and focusing on whole foods. That's been shown, even in research with depression, to improve mood and to actually be very effective.
Oh, yeah.
And then yet we've turned it into a negative now.
Oh, no. And this is the thing, so I'm someone who suffered from generalized anxiety disorder since I was in my early 20s. And part of the reason why, and this is what I get really angry with social media, the amount of people on there who are like, you shouldn't have to control your diet. You shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have to look at it with constant like disciplinary action. And I'm like, well, hang on. When I started taking care of my body and I started actually caring what I was eating and I started caring whether or not I was working out, my mental health issues went from pretty fucking bad to completely manageable, I would say, within 2 months. Which, thank God, because I really didn't want to have to go on medication and I was definitely heading down that route because it was really messing up my day-to-day life. And if I hadn't found that discipline and that control, it wouldn't have gone very well for me. I would have ended up on medication. I don't know how bad it would have got. But the fact that I could actually, I guess, pull on some strength, some self-respect, some self-discipline and implement kind of a diet and exercise routine really aided my mental health. Now, caveat to that, there did come a point where all of a sudden it switched from being like that to me becoming overly focused on my appearance. And as soon as I caught that happening, and those of you who've been listening to the podcast since it started will know this, or recall when I had Hayley Madigan on to talk about this and very honestly talked about how I was at a rugby wedding in Fiji, and I messaged her and I was like, you got to help me. I'm not okay. And I don't want to go down this path. I've thankfully never suffered with an eating disorder and I absolutely had no interest in it. I said, you got to help me. And she did. And I pulled back and I went into a targeted time of food neutrality, not dieting, still very much taking care of my body from a exercise standpoint and a nutrition standpoint, but not looking at calories in, energy balance, anything like that, just taking care of it. And it really helped. And then I got pregnant, had Bodhi, and now I'm in a fantastic place with it. But there is so much to be said for that discipline and that self-control, which is now often so looked down on, especially by the female social media community, that a lot of people can say actually saved their lives.
Yeah, and I think it's often people's own experiences that they push on other people, probably from well-meaning standpoints of, when I used to go to the gym 5 times a week, that was really negative, and I was doing it to burn off my breakfast. Yeah. Whereas actually some people are like, I'm doing it because I want to feel my best. Yeah. And like I said, there's no higher form of self-care than diet and exercise, like both from a mental health standpoint or a physical health standpoint. Yeah. Like nothing can replace that, so that we've turned it into such a negative. Yeah. And I guess this happens with everything, right? Some of something is good, too much of it is bad. Like, yeah, so always, right?
While we're doing that, because that reminded me of something that you put on Instagram the other day that we talked about in a live. Just while we're on it, some of something is good, a lot of it is bad. Let's talk about chronically high cortisol levels, and then we should also touch on insulin response as well, because we know There are some people out there doing the rounds, getting a lot of press attention and social media attention, talking about insulin response and also cortisol raising if you exercise being a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's the new favourite. So Emma, let's talk about it. What happens when you eat food, specifically carbohydrates, but generally food?
Yeah, so this was more about, I guess, they relate, obviously, but glucose response and people now wearing continuous glucose monitors and being really over-analysing these short-term fluctuations in glucose.
And we're just caveating this by saying we're talking to metabolically healthy individuals here, not diabetics or people who genuinely need to be conscious of glucose spikes. So carry on.
Agreed. And I think that's where the problem lies, is that you're looking at an extreme of someone who cannot handle glucose, i.e. a diabetic, and then being like, well, if it's bad for them, it must be bad for me.
Yeah.
Or if, a lot of something like chronically high glucose levels, that is the hallmark of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, of course.
So you want to obviously avoid that. But normal glucose fluctuations are completely normal and completely healthy and
safe.
It's
a safe way.
Shouldn't be avoided.
Yeah, absolutely. When your blood glucose spikes and insulin is secreted and it what do you say, Emma? You have a really nice term for it.
The insulin is like knocking on the door of a cell, being like, look, there's some energy out here that needs
Let
to be
me in.
Yeah.
We need to store it in a safe place.
And then the glucose transporters hear that message, come to the cell door, open the cell, and then the glucose comes in. And that's a safe place.
And this is a healthy response. They're metabolically healthy. And this means congratulations, you're a metabolically healthy individual. Like, you don't need to monitor it. It's still, your body's doing it for you. You're fine.
The problem then comes with the fact that if you consume fat, you reduce gastric emptying and thus you reduce your insulin spike, you reduce your glucose spike. Now, if you're only focused on, I just want to avoid high glucose levels, then you end up basically covering a lot of things in fat. There's examples on social media of like, you could eat an apple or you could eat an apple covered in like peanut butter and look, lower glucose response.
And then the irony, lower glucose response, but then you're upping your calories significantly because you're mixing carbs and fats, which ironically, if you continuously do, is going to put you in the firing line for type 2 diabetes. And now you really have to watch your blood glucose response. I mean, what is even going on?
And then I even think like back to what we were talking about before of maybe going too far on the health and fitness, like worrying too much about certain aspects and like orthorexia type tendencies. I can see this happening already with people so obsessive over their glucose response that they're not enjoying food anymore or they're over-analysing everything. And that's probably going to be some form of eating disorder as well.
I completely agree. And I think that there's a lot of responsibility that people are going to have to take down the line, but we're doing our best. We're doing our best at the moment. And then let's just touch on exercise response, adaptation, stress on the body and increased cortisol levels. A lot of women come to Emma and I and they say, I've read that with increased cortisol, it's going to halt my fat burning ability. And obviously when I exercise, we all know your cortisol levels will rise. So what kind of intensity should I be exercising at? When should I stop exercising? Emma, much like we just did with insulin, cortisol is a response to exercise versus chronically high cortisol.
I mean, exactly the same thing, right? Actually, it's completely normal. Like, exercise is a stress on the body and cortisol will be a stress response to that. That's actually quite important for the adaptations to exercise as well. So it's not a negative thing. Now, if you have chronically high, that does become potentially a negative thing. But with all of these, so the same argument's given for insulin that it turns off fat breakdown, which it does in the short term, right? And I think that's where people miss it. It's like, of course it does. It's basically a signal to your body to say, hey, there's energy here. Why would you break down your own stored energy, body fat, when we already have lots of energy? And actually, that's one of the problems with diabetes is that your body can't hear the signal so well of insulin. So it keeps producing glucose even when there's a lot of glucose there.
It's like nose blind.
Yeah. So and actually that's a bigger problem than the glucose you're taking in from your diet is the fact that you still produce glucose when the glucose is there. And so then it can't clear that level of glucose. No matter what, if you're in a calorie deficit, you'll lose fat. So I think people focus so much on, same with fasted training, I'm burning more fat. And it's like you're using more fat for fuel during this short period of time. That doesn't translate necessarily to more loss of body fat unless you're in a bigger deficit.
Exactly.
What makes the EC method different?
Well, I think everything we're talking about now, we don't just give you, like, look, obviously workouts are important. Calorie ranges are important. Nutrition targets are important. But as we've been saying, everybody knows what to do. So why isn't everybody in banging shape? Because it's not the numbers. It's not the here's your workout, here are your calories. It's food behaviour. It's what happens when you go out drinking with your mates. Do you always hit up the kebab stand on the way home? What happens when you go through a hard time at work? Do you come home and eat everything you can find in the cupboard? You know, we talk a lot about a binge restrict cycle, not in the clinically diagnosed sense of binge eating. That is not in our remit. We are not food psychologists, so please don't misconstrue what we're saying. But we talk about over-restriction and then overindulgence. And when I try to iron all of this out, and it doesn't take a week, and you don't get a trophy at the end of the 8 weeks if you lost most amount of weight, it is very much a compassionate, personalised, one-on-one conversation that we have with you. And I think there's also this idea of like, well, why could you two help me? You know, like you seem like you're in good shape, you know, privileged girls. Emma and I are beyond passionate about our jobs. We are extremely qualified. We have helped a hell of a lot of women and men as well. The EC method tends to be a lot of women, but we both have a lot of male one-to-one clients. We really care and we have so much experience at this point. And like as Emma said in the beginning, we really do continuously add to our qualifications so we can help more and more and more and casting it out wider and wider. And we love it. It is not just a money-making exercise. All you have to do is read the testimonials on our page to realise we create real relationships with our clients. We love it. And I think that's what makes us different.
I think one thing we haven't touched on that's so important to people when they feel like they're failing on a diet is the environment. And this is something that we've kind of been speaking about more and more, I think, over the last year or so, but like the food environment that you live in and how you can curate that. Because a lot of people think they lack willpower, but it's not so.
They're making it harder.
Yeah, you've literally surrounded yourself with temptation. Or you're like, why do I always overeat after that really long shift? And it's like, you've not prepped anything.
You didn't eat for 6 hours. Like, who is going to go do like a full day of work, come home and not, oh my God, I've got such a problem. It's like, no, you just need to eat frequently throughout the day.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's figuring out those patterns and it's figuring out them for the individual. And then it's really troubleshooting. Like we always say, if you come to us with a problem and you are actively looking for a solution, you want us to find a solution with you, you're coachable. We'll do everything we possibly can to help you.
Oh yeah.
If you're looking for basically excuses not to, like, I can't do this, and you're not like, I can't do it this way, how can I do it?
Yeah.
That's basically what we need.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. And I've done a podcast on this series already about the importance and the huge life-changing results you will get by saying, okay, I can't do that. What can I do? Okay, so you can't train this week because you tore your rotator cuff, and maybe not next month either. What can you do? You can still go for a walk every day. You can still do lower body, every other day in the gym if you want. You can still stick to your calories. It's just, again, all or nothing pendulum swing night. Well, I tore my rotator cuff, so I guess that's it for me. But I also think that that's a response to the over-restriction. You're looking for a way out. You're looking for an excuse to not. So Emma and I really make the effort to iron out that approach first and foremost so that, I'm not saying everyone on the EC method tears the rotator cuff, but so that when that injury potentially happens, you don't go to that mindset because you haven't been over-restricting, you haven't been overtraining. You're like, oh, okay, well, I can't work out. I guess I'll just do this, and this instead. And I do think it's kind of a bit of you have to look at somebody's past history with diet and exercise before you can expect to change before you can expect to get them real permanent results.
I would say that's one of the best things about group coaching.
Yeah.
I don't know if you notice the difference sometimes, not always, if any of my one-to-ones listening, but sometimes the difference between one-to-one clients and the clients we get on the EC method is that like the social norm within EC of looking for solutions. Like it's almost hard not to when you've got someone who's like, I've just finished my 6th chemo bout and I'm recovering from this, but you know what? I still got my steps in today and I'm so proud of it. Like, stuff like that. You're like, how can I, like, and my excuse is like, I accidentally ate an extra donut. Like, you're like, oh, I need to just get on with things. But no one's telling you to do that. It's just, it like rubs off with the environment that you're in and you level up to the people around you. And what you were talking about before about, people having different goals. Everyone in the group gets just as excited, if not more, about the person that's like, it's been 4 rounds, but I've finally gone to the gym and I've finally plucked up the courage to, I've done all the home workouts and now I'm finally ready to go and everyone's buzzing. Or someone's done a photo shoot and they're doing 10 pull-ups or something, the other extreme. Or I've run my 5th marathon this year. And
oh my God, yeah. The excitement we get when our clients like, I did a pull-up. honestly, it's such a pleasure. It's such an honor doing what we do. And I would like to say that we're pretty good at it at this point.
And like the client the other week who was like, do you know what, I'm going to open up a bit. I have really struggled with my body image. I don't want to go to this big party. I don't want to do this. I'm scared of wearing this
client
dress.
we forced to go to the party.
And everyone got behind it like, you have to go. And like, you're going with your family and you'll regret these things. And the impact is so much more than just like, most people come for fat loss, right? But the impact that it has on all areas of your life.
Oh God, the amount of clients who are like, I went for that promotion and I got it. And now I'm earning more and I'm happier in my job. And we're like,
yeah.
Well, that's
a great investment.
Yeah, we're like, how does that have anything to do with us? And they're like, no, because you made me have self-belief that I could do a pull-up, that I could run the marathon, that I could get control over my diet because every time I'm stressed, I overeat and like all these things happen. And I was like, oh, I have self-belief. I can do this. And like, also I was talking privately to a client the other day who'd been in like quite an abusive relationship for quite a long time and had finally walked away from it. And she was like, I just feel like a different person. And it bleeds out. And that's why I talk about generalized anxiety disorder and diet and exercise. I'm sure a lot of people listening will be like, oh, please, no. It changed my life within 2 months. I was a different person. I think that's also partly why Emma and I are so passionate about it. We have our own experiences with this. You know, we've had our own mental health battles. You know, Emma had to lie on the floor 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for months. Not long ago, 3 years ago now.
Well, it was when we were doing EC, wasn't it?
Yeah, we started doing EC and she has to do everything from the floor because she couldn't move. Now, this is someone who's incredibly invested in their health and fitness and activity and exercise, sporty girl. It messed with her head and she went through it and she didn't like taking the painkillers. Then it meant she couldn't do all the other stuff that she had with all this free time that she was trying to reframe and be like, okay, well, at least I can start another business. She'd take the painkillers, go into some weird ketamine-esque hole, have to come out of it, be like, okay, well, I can't do that. And she really grappled with it and really struggled. And we've both had hormonal things that have happened to us in the past. And, you know, it means so much to us. We know how much it changed our lives and we really want to pay that forward. We only have a few minutes left. What do you want to end on, Em?
So I think one of the biggest things that people take away, and I think partly because this round that's just finished has finished like in the summer, which means that so many people have just gone on holiday. And it's really heightened to be like how far I've come with my relationship with food and how I now feel like I can go on holiday, I can enjoy myself, I'm not restricting myself, I'm not freaking out, and I'm not beating myself up when I come home. And I think that shows a lot. And the whole reason, I would say our whole like ethos behind coaching is you live your life while you get results. You don't put your life on hold because that means that like, one, life's way too short for that. Yeah. Two, it means it's going to be short-lived and you're going to resent the process. Yeah. Our whole thing, and I actually just had someone this morning because the next intake is starting on Monday, being like, hey, I've got a holiday and a hen do, like, should I wait until the next round? I'm like, no, this is your life, realistically. And when you really ask yourself the question, do you have 8 weeks where nothing is going to happen?
No.
And if you do, you need to, you know, get out. You need to get out more, and that's me saying that.
That's Emma. Emma's moving all the way to London just to ensure that she gets out more. No, I completely agree. You're never going to have that period. It starts now. It's not like we say, it's not the all or nothing. It's not the pendulum swing. Striking the balance, and we iron it out from day one. And people sometimes will get to grips with it after a week or two. Sometimes some people will get to grips with it after a month or two. But start now. Like, so you might be like, yeah, but if I do the all or nothing approach and I cut my calories and I go to the gym 6 days a week and I do an hour of cardio after every lifting session, yeah, you're going to get really good results, and you're probably going to get really good results inside 4 weeks, let alone 8. And then what? And then what happens when you have a hen do? When it's your birthday, when your partner surprises you on your anniversary and you spend a weekend away in Porto. Then what? Then you come back and now you're quote unquote off the wagon. And I guarantee you there's going to be a really difficult period of you trying to grapple back that all or nothing mentality to go and ham again. Why don't we just start now? Why don't we just start to deal with it now? Solve the problem, get you the results. It might take 4 months instead of 4 weeks, but we'll still get you those results and keep them and never ever have to do the stupid pendulum swing round and round and roundabout again. And that's what I think I want for our clients. I want everybody to get to that place we got to, where I can go on a hen do, come back and crack on. Yeah. There's no problem. And I'm not all in my own head, ruining my life, tearing myself apart all the time.
And I think the irony of quick fixes is they're not.
They're not.
Quick.
No,
You know,
you're
like,
just
'cause
buying, you're treading water.
Yeah, you're taking 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. And you normally rebound and put on more weight. And then that's not even considering like the impact of your relationship with food. And an analogy I love for this is if you have a leak in your house and you just keep putting a bucket under it, like that's like the quick fix, right? The bucket overflows, you need to get a new bucket, or the water damage in your roof, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you just paid once, it might be more expensive. It might take a little bit longer than just getting a bucket. You're going to have to call a plumber. They're going to have to actually find the source of the problem and fix it.
Yeah.
It won't happen again.
Yeah.
And actually, it might cost more than buying another bucket in terms of time and effort and all this kind of stuff. But actually, it's way more effective, right?
Yeah, no. Best analogy ever. I love it. Where you're like, you don't get a leak in your house and think like, turn off all the water. It's like, it's not going to fix anything either. Then what? It's been 2 days and you ain't had a shower yet.
Yeah.
Okay, look, we've kind of, I think hopefully we've given a nice insight into how we coach, of the obvious things, the workouts, the calories, the numbers. But I also hope that we've given an insight into a more evidence-based approach, touching on hormonal responses, for example, lack of fear-mongering, what we tend to find the problems are for our clients, which is behaviours and psychology, way more than a number. And I hope that even if one person out there is like, oh, maybe you guys could be the ones to help. We like to think that we are. We will be. We will. You can sign up at theecmethod.co.uk. We take on new clients every 8 weeks. And if you have any questions at all, you can shoot Emma or I a DM and we will get back to you. Emma, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. And the only thing I'll leave with it is if you are feeling like you've been dieting your whole life, like we really want to help you. This is like back to the first question, like this is why we created the EC method. We don't want people to feel like there's no hope, that they've been on and off things
doesn't
forever.
Work for them.
Yeah, exactly. Like the diet probably doesn't work for you because you're trying to mold your life around something else.
Yes.
But actually we can help you create small changes in your life, make some compromises to actually get long-lasting results and enjoy it at the same time. Like this is meant to be a fun, empowering thing. It's why we have such a laugh on the EC method.
Oh yeah,
it's not, we take our job seriously, we don't take ourselves seriously, and everyone's in there like
unless I'm having a run. You will listen.
Rooting for each other. Yeah, and that's Chloe's like at the start of the round, everybody knuckle down.
It works though.
It did work.
How many people thanked me at the end of that round?
I know.
I was like, right, I'm sick of this now.
There's some grads out there who are not doing the work.
Yeah, keep talking about it and not doing it. You know what? That's like exactly like the analogy. We love an analogy too, in case you hadn't realised. Like the analogy of having a baby. The baby has to fit into your life, not the other way around. It's like that with the diet. The diet has to fit into your life. You don't have to fit into the diet's life.
Yeah, Bodhi. You'll fit around my schedule.
Yeah, Bodhi. Hope you're fucking listening, Bodhi. Okay, we're going to go now. If you guys like this episode of the podcast, oh dear, please do like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell everyone on social media about it. Honestly, it makes such a huge difference. And yeah, like I say, EC Method, shoot us a DM, get on the website, and we would love to coach you.
At the EC Method.
At the EC Method on social media.